Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Flores Island Hobbit, the 3-foot human species living until 12,000 years ago. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 2003, archaeologists excavating Liang Bua Cave on the Indonesian island of Flores found a partial skeleton of a tiny hominin, just 1 meters tall, with a brain the size of a grapefruit. The bones were only 18,000 years old. Homo floresiensis, as it was named, was a separate species of human that coexisted with us far more recently than anyone had imagined. And there may have been even more recent survivors. What makes the find genuinely extraordinary is not just the size. It is the combination: a brain volume of 380 cubic centimeters, smaller than a chimpanzee, combined with sophisticated stone tools, evidence of fire use, and the organized hunting of pygmy elephants. Modern humans have consistently assumed that intelligence scales with brain size. Homo floresiensis challenges that assumption directly, and the people of Flores have oral traditions about small, cave-dwelling people called ebugogo who are still being encountered in the jungle within living memory. The question is whether those traditions describe an actual biological encounter or something else entirely. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Catastrophism, the idea that Earth's geological and cultural history has been shaped by sudden, violent events rather than gradual processes, was once the dominant paradigm in science. It was then largely displaced by uniformitarianism, the principle championed by Charles Lyell in the 19th century that the present is the key to the past, and that change occurs slowly and continuously. The pendulum has since swung back. Modern geology and astronomy have confirmed that catastrophic events, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, rapid climate shifts, have profoundly shaped Earth's surface and life upon it. The Chicxulub impact that ended the Cretaceous is the most famous example, but it is not alone. The Younger Dryas cooling event 12,000 years ago caused radical shifts in human habitat within decades, not millennia. The Bronze Age collapse 3,000 years ago ended multiple interconnected civilizations in a generation. These events matter for archaeology because they reset the evidence. A major catastrophe does not merely destroy a civilization, it destroys the record of that civilization. Survivors carry only what they can remember, and memory degrades with each generation. After a few centuries, the grandchildren of survivors have myths where their grandparents had engineering manuals. What archaeologists find when they excavate ancient sites is not the full picture. It is the fragment that survived the last catastrophe. The full picture may be forever gone, preserved only in the ambiguous traces that puzzle researchers to this day. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns in science demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter, the core evidence surrounding the Flores Island Hobbit, the 3-foot human species living until 000 years ago is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Homo floresiensis was discovered in 2003 by a team led by Peter Brown and Mike Morwood during excavation of Liang Bua Cave on the island of Flores in eastern Indonesia. The primary specimen, designated LB1, is a partial skeleton of an adult female with a standing height of approximately 1.06 meters and a cranial volume of 380 cubic centimeters, roughly the same as a chimpanzee. This single data point, if taken in isolate, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the associated skeleton was initially dated to approximately 18,000 years ago, placing Homo floresiensis firmly within the period of anatomically modern human occupation of Southeast Asia. A 2016 revision of the dating using updated sediment analysis placed the LB1 skeleton at between 100,000 and 60,000 years old, pushing the specimen back considerably, though stone tools in the cave continued until approximately 50,000 years ago. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine. Despite a brain volume dramatically smaller than modern humans, Homo floresiensis is associated with sophisticated Acheulean-type stone tools, including small flakes and blades. Evidence of fire use was found in the cave. The faunal record shows the hominins hunted stegodon, a species of pygmy elephant suggesting coordinated group hunting behavior inconsistent with the cognitive limitations one might expect from such a small brain. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, stone tools on the island of Flores have been dated to approximately 800,000 years ago at the site of Mata Menge, suggesting an extraordinarily long occupation of the island by small hominins. This implies either a very early colonization by a small-bodied hominin ancestor or an extremely long period of island dwarfism operating on an initially larger hominin population. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the Ebu Gogo, small, hairy, cave-dwelling people described in Flores' oral tradition, are reported by local communities to have been encountered as recently as the 19th century. The name translates roughly as grandmother who eats anything. Anthropologists have noted the tradition is highly specific, geographically consistent, and persistent across communities with no obvious reason to fabricate it. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. In 2019, a second small hominin species, Homo luzonensis, was described. Ram fossils found in Calao Cave in the Philippines, dated to approximately 67,000 years ago. The discovery confirmed that small, morphologically distinct hominins were not unique to Flores, but were a broader feature of island Southeast Asia, suggesting multiple independent small-bodied hominin populations existed across the region simultaneously with anatomically modern humans. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodology. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Flores Island Hobbit, the 3-foot human species living until 12,000 years ago. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Homo floresiensis is a genuine new species of hominin descended from Homo erectus, which colonized Flores and underwent island dwarfism, a well-documented evolutionary process in which isolated island populations evolve smaller body size over generations due to reduced food availability. This is the original and still dominant interpretation, advanced by Peter Brown and Mike Morwood, and supported by the morphological analysis of multiple skeletal elements. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence. But it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that LB1 is a pathological modern human with microcephaly or another developmental disorder that produced abnormal smallness and brain reduction. This counterinterpretation was advanced by Robert Martin and others shortly after the original publication. It has been strongly disputed by subsequent analysis of wrist bones, shoulder joints, and foot morphology, all of which show non-modern characteristics inconsistent with any known pathological condition in Homo sapiens. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that Homo floresiensis descended from an even earlier and more primitive African hominin, possibly a population that reached Asia before Homo erectus, rather than from Homo erectus itself. This interpretation is supported by some morphological features that appear more primitive than Homo erectus, and by the 2019 discovery of Homo luzonensis, which suggests the island hominin diversity of Southeast Asia is more ancient and complex than the simple Homo erectus dwarfism model allows. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Flores Island Hobbit the 3-foot human species living until 12,000 years ago does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes detailed analysis of LB1 wrist bones, shoulder joint morphology, and foot anatomy by multiple independent research teams has confirmed that the skeleton's features are inconsistent with any known pathological condition in modern Homo sapiens, including microcephaly. The morphology matches neither a diseased modern human nor a known hominid pathology, leaving species-level distinction as the only coherent explanation for the full suite of anatomical characteristics observed. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented multiple individuals with similar morphology were recovered from Liangbua Cave, including teeth, arm and leg bones, and jaw fragments from at least 9 separate individuals. The pathological explanation for a single aberrant skeleton requires an implausible scenario in which multiple individuals from the same population independently exhibited the same rare combination of abnormalities. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the 2019 discovery of Homo luzonensis in Calao Cave in the Philippines, confirmed in a Nature paper, demonstrated that morphologically small and primitive hominins occupied multiple islands in Southeast Asia during the period when modern humans were also present. This independent discovery of a second small island hominin species provides strong corroborating context for the validity of Homo floresiensis as a genuine species rather than a pathological outlier. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Flores Hobbit, the 3-foot human species living until 12,000 years ago. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Homo floresiensis is now broadly accepted as a valid species by the paleoanthropological community, though debate about its ancestry continues. Attempts to extract ancient DNA from the specimens have failed due to the degrading effect of the tropical environment on genetic material. Stone tools at Liangbua dated to between 50,000 and 12,000 years ago suggest the population may have survived until relatively recent times. The 2019 Homo luzonensis discovery confirmed that island Southeast Asia harbored remarkable hominin diversity. Ebu-Gogo oral traditions on Flores continue to attract anthropological attention as a potential memory of genuine biological contact between modern humans and a remnant Homo floresiensis population. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Flores Island Hobbit, the 3-foot human species living until 12,000 years ago, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Homo floresiensis ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.